Let's start with the event. What is it about?
Wow. You know, every time I hear about the Women Leaders in Higher Education Summit, I get really excited. So this summit, you know, growing up as a young woman in academics, felt so lonely and hectic at some point, you know, struggling to have your degrees and also grow and thrive. And I remember there was a year I borrowed money to attend an international conference somewhere in Abuja. And I remember Professor Grace Alele Williams was the keynote speaker that day. It was a women, they call it GASAT, Gender and Science and Technology Network. And I was at that meeting, so many things happened that day in that workshop. For me, it was the day I thought, I want to be a keynote speaker someday. And I doubt if Prof. Alele ever knew that her speech that day, the way she carried herself, affected a young woman in that meeting that year. That was 2000. So, and actually, my MSc supervisor supported me also to go there because I shared a bed, because I couldn't afford a hotel room. But there was, you know, those aunties that have this information and they don't want to give it. So I wanted to join GASAT. And because I was interested, what they were saying made sense to me. I could relate with many of those. And then a Kenyan auntie pushed me and gave my hand to a Nigerian Yoruba auntie from my tribe to say, take care of this lady. She wants to join her. And she told me, this person will link you up with the rest of GASAT. But this auntie never give me ordinary email address. And you know, those days, it's not like now that you go to the internet and you type something and you just get all the info. It was difficult to have information. That was just one of the many hurdles where people, you know, heard even information that was not useful to them because they were over 40, you are just 20 something or early 30s. So, but they can't use it because they were over 40. They have the information, but they put it in their drawer instead of giving it to the young one. So those early days, they taught me how not to be an older person to my younger colleagues. And I know many youngsters, many young academics, they still struggle with some of these issues. Apart from the fact that I was an only woman in a department for many years. So you know what it means. At some point, I had to complain that, listen here, I don't want to be the departmental secretary again. Because I realized that role was assigned to me because I was a woman, not because I was the youngest or the most junior. So there was, you know, things like that even the men in the space, they didn't understand was counterproductive in the life of the younger person that is a woman. So there are issues of gender roles and all of those from the community that comes to the workplace that women had to deal with. So even as a leader, you are expected to be the macho leader, the leader that comes to the office and everybody sits straight. Not the leader that will walk into the office and nobody will stand up and come to hug. So it's all of those issues. And I used to tell some people, listen here, let me breathe. Let me lead as a woman. I'm feminine. So it's okay for me to hug my secretary. And if I need to put my secretary straight, my secretary knows that she needed to deliver. So the things that are peculiar to men, issues of having to overwork yourself to prove a point. I remember there was a time I would rewrite my email 3-4 times just to be sure that there's no grammatical error that another man colleague or boss will pick up. But over the years, I realized that men will just make all kinds of grammatical errors in their mails and nobody bothered. So those are the things. So women tend to put unnecessary pressure on themselves. Sometimes they don't have the support system to guide them through some of those issues. There are issues of sexual harassment in workplaces. There are issues of bullying. How do we navigate it? And in fact, when you get to the leadership position, it becomes even cumbersome because at that level, it's more lonely. You seldom have true friends that will tell you straight or give it to you straight. They want to tell you the things you want to hear. So these are the things we're bringing into the space. We're bringing women leaders, people that have led before, people that are still leading, and people that will yet lead in the future, that will take the batons from the ones in my generation to the same space to discuss on these issues, share experiences, foster networks, gather new partners and collaborators, explore or explain what is the word, expose the younger ones to mentors, to potential mentorship opportunities, so that we leave that room in after those 2 days more empowered and stronger. And at the end of the day, I think the end goal there is to foster this strong community of women leaders that we can multiply across Africa and perhaps take outside of Africa to the rest of the globe in future.
Okay. No, that's interesting.
I
So
hope that